progress.
All right, good evening, everybody. Officially call the meeting to order. It is 7:01 for the regular meeting and public hearing for Tuesday, September 26th, Old Town Hall, Dayton Zoning Board of Appeals. The Zoom information is below, the URL there to join. Meeting ID 744-646-2815. Passcode is 651342. Phone to dial in is 305-224-1968. And this is the revised agenda. The original meeting was posted on August 28th, 3 p.m. This is a public meeting being held, this is a public meeting being video and audio recorded for cable broadcast. This agenda is subject to revisions and additions up until meeting time. The listing of those matters are reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may be in fact discussed, and other items may not listed may be also brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. If you could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, so first thing we're going to do is to confirm the next meeting date, which would be October 24th. Is that going to be a problem for anybody on the board?
I don't believe so. I'm checking right now, Mr. October 24th.
That works.
So just the way that the month falls, it technically are 5 Tuesdays that month. So just make sure everyone realizes that it's not, because sometimes it happens to be the last, but it's not always the last, so just keep that in mind. So what Tuesday is. All right. We do have someone who's going to be here a little bit late. I don't think she's here yet, right? I heard someone chime in, but okay. Who will be here to help discuss the matter for Stonegate Landing, which is our first item agenda meeting. But because they're not here yet, I'm going to see if there's a motion that we can take this agenda item out of order and put public input first, as I heard that there could be someone here who wants to speak not related to any agenda item. So I just need a motion to take the item agenda 4 out of order and put 5 first.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we take item number 4 and put it to item number 5, and here item number 4 first.
Is there a second?
So moved.
Any discussion? All's in favor? Aye. All right, if you guys want to come up and just, I understand you had just, this is more going to be point of information and just preliminary, just show us, I guess, some plans they have for us. So just keep in mind, we're not voting on anything, and so.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, you don't get one, I'm sorry.
And then if you guys don't mind just staying at the podium and just stating your name for the record, and you can begin whenever you're ready.
John D'Souza of North County Group.
And Mark Mason.
So my client is looking to purchase the property. It's currently got about 1.4 acres of land with it. There is a current house on the property right now. The proximity to the Taunton town line is basically within 3/4 of a mile from there. It's just right up the road. It's near Zeke's,
Yep.
if anybody is familiar with that area. Yep. And what my client is looking to do is, if you flip through the packet, you go to page number 3, there's a small little sketch in there that shows a sketch of two townhouses right in the middle of the lot. The lot has no wetlands on it, so it's all upland at this point. And he would be connecting that to water, and he'd have to do, I believe, septic systems there, because there's no water sewage at that point. So we're looking to get possibly the input from the board as to how you feel about possibly approving a duplex on that property.
last thing we can do is give you a feeling if we're going to approve it or not. Because with it not being a posted public input, I mean, we can certainly discuss like what options you have or, you know, details, but for us to say, yeah, I think we approve it, we can't not do that,
Right.
obviously. So
Yep.
a lot of times people do that when they are thinking about buying something and they say, well, we're gonna buy it if you guys are gonna vote yes. It's like, well, I can't tell you that without seeing any kind of plans. So I can't tell you how we would vote, but we can certainly look at this compared to other things in the past and say, is it in the realm of something that we've, you know, looked at before?
Yeah.
Or
Let me
if you
touch
have
base.
concerns over it?
Oh yeah, that's something that we can certainly discuss. I mean, Greg, what's your, I mean,
Well, can I touch base real quick? I know, so we're under agreement on the property, and we've been dealing with the homeowner and the estate. It's been a vacant property for a long time.
Okay.
I think at this point it's condemned, and we tried, you know, going the possible route of, rehabbing it. It's just not, it's not gonna be the best product. And to tear it down and to put a new house, it's gonna be very tough. So we've been working with the homeowner for about a year now. We went through the whole probate process, and the homeowner ended up. I know at first we were gonna come to the board about 3 or 4 months ago, but there was back taxes. So the
Oh, okay.
state, and we were in a position with the owner, like, hey, like this is where we're at. Like we can't just assume we're gonna get approved with something like this. This is the only way that it really like financially works is putting townhouses.
right.
So they ended up paying the back taxes out of good faith, trying to hope that we could do something with it. So I thought that was just good input for you guys. That I mean I think the easiest and best solution would have been to go to put a single family home. But I just think with where all the numbers are at and where everything got approved at for their probate, this is our best solution.
So just out of curiosity, so you said 2 townhouses.
No,
And
eight times.
it'd be one structure with 2 units. Okay. Because in my mind, 2 townhouses would be 2 different structures. But okay, I see what you're saying now.
Yeah. And we're looking at possibly doing garage unders on the front, so that way it takes the curse off of the hill as well. Because right now, you look up and it's just.
I do
Yeah.
know what that property. I mean, I don't know it well as I haven't been on it, but I certainly drive by it literally every day to work. So I mean, I do know what property that is. In terms of duplexes, we had that one that went. It was supposed to go on the next to the gas station, a mobile.
It never got.
And I mean, we approved it, and it never got built. I don't know why, and that part doesn't really matter per se. But I mean, so it's not like we haven't heard something before.
We've entertained duplexes, but the only duplexes that I know that have ever been built in the 14 years that I've been on the board, I've been in 40Bs.
Yeah, not to say and not to say there's any indication that it wouldn't
No,
happen,
I'm not
because
saying that.
like I said, we approved the one that was.
Yeah,
Oh my God, that would have been just across the street
Yeah.
almost, pretty much.
Yeah.
Which is a question too, I guess, would this be through a 40B process? or-
No.
No.
So these will be all sold at market rate? or-
Yes.
Because our town bylaws say we do not allow duplexes.
Yeah, I think they say special permit, right?
That's what you're gonna.
That's what this would
what
be.
you'd coming from.
So, but by right, we don't allow them, but it's not like, no, we don't do them at all, ever. You just can't by right, just go ahead and get rid of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would never even be bringing it if it was more in like the core of Dayton. But since it was on a main road, that's why we thought about it.
So you're purchasing just the yellow highlighted area within this road, so this property. And how many acres is that?
1.4.
1.4. And you purchased it, you haven't purchased it, you're in the process of either making the deal or not making the deal.
Yeah, essentially, I think our closing date's like probably within a month away or something along those lines. It keeps getting pushed out for just attorney issues.
I mean, it's certainly not something out of the realm of possibility.
No, I'm not gonna say that, I just know that we've never done one. I know there is duplexes in town prior to the zoning boards and stuff in North Dayton, things like that.
It is, and thinking of the location of this, it almost, like, if you were gonna find one in Dayton, that would be the street you'd find it on.
Right.
If you're gonna put it on Main Street, I think that would kind of be odd, not odd, but
Yeah,
more out of the realm of the character of the town. Meanwhile, here,
There's a lot of things with a duplex, with the fire departments, they get concerned with that stuff because of the demising wall must be, I'm not sure what type it
It's
is.
a
see a view.
I do 2-hour rated wall in
Yeah.
between the units, yeah.
And then we ran into the problems. The problems with duplexes in the town is this person can afford his roof, that person can't afford his roof, so it turns into issues. I remember talking with your dad on another one years ago.
Yeah.
So those are the concerns we have, because now this is gonna be an owned duplex, and then someone's renting them, or are you going to sell them?
No, we're gonna sell each unit. They're HOAs.
Yeah,
This is-
okay.
okay, so this will be as an HOA?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it'll be like a
they'll
low
have
HOA
a
fee.
HOA with it, so that way each unit contributes their monetary shares, and they'll end up doing for the snow plowing, any repairs on the exterior of it and whatnot.
Ever spoken to any of the abutters in the area yet?
Not yet, no.
No, it's a lot of businesses, but I did not speak to any of
Yeah,
those.
I mean, mostly, right? Because
Yeah.
where's the end?
Billadoo's over to the left. Then you got Zeke's over to the right. I think there's another residential house just on the right-hand side, but she is set back further, and then across the street, you have basically, is it mobile right there?
Yes.
Well, it used to be mobile unless they,
It's golf
Sweet.
now, I think,
Yeah.
technically.
yeah.
But so, just so you guys know, so that gas station, there's a parcel of vacant land right next to it.
Yep.
Before the houses. That's where the other duplex was gonna go. That
Oh,
we voted on and was approved, and it just never happened. I don't know if something on their end, I would imagine, and nothing on our end, but that's where this other one was gonna go, like right next to that gas station.
Yeah, so that's almost right across the
Pretty much, yeah.
highway. Right there.
I mean, if anything, I think maybe the abutters would, if their businesses might appreciate the fact that there's just someone moving in there eventually for future business, you know what I mean? I guess that's probably,
So the house that's on there now, you're saying is
It's
it's
vacant.
not worth raising the structure or doing anything to the existing structure that's with them right now?
No, it's
You know
pretty.
what era it was built in?
It's pretty bad. I think it was 1800s.
So it's a
We
stone
developed-
foundation?
Yeah.
I do a lot of work in Taunton, and I've done some houses in Dayton as well, on Pleasant Street and stuff like that. But this one's just like
Yeah, it's rough.
it'd be a
It is.
liability more than anything in the end.
it's, I mean, with all due respect, it's kind of an eyesore.
Yeah.
Personally, I mean, I've always, even when I was younger, seeing the house high up always had my interest. The fact that, and I can older and appreciate this more, it is kind of, it would be kind of nice to get the property cleaned up for sure.
And to throw in there that these units would be they're nowhere near like low income or anything. They're like it'd be $485,000 a side most likely, depending on when we finish, give or take. So that they're nice units. They're two floors, three bedrooms, 2.5 baths. Obviously with a garage, so they're like they're nice units. It's a good product. And if we take this to the next meeting, we'll bring a mock up.
Yeah, we'll have the exterior elevations and whatnot as
Okay.
well. For the unit, so you can see what it'll end up being.
Do any other board members have any questions? So again, just because I know you guys are probably not really experienced this before, again, we're not voting on anything. We can't give any indication of how we would vote, but if you do have any questions about the property or the project, you can certainly ask them. I don't know, Dave, do you have anything?
Nope.
Susan, no, nothing? I mean, it's, in my opinion, I think it's something certainly worth bringing before the board. I mean, it's, and I would definitely be intrigued to see what you guys would plan to do with it.
Is your purchase dependent upon what we do?
Essentially, yeah. I mean, if I have to buy it without getting approved, I'm probably just gonna have to like put it back on the market and see if I can drum up just someone to pretty much take it for what I bought it for.
Right.
I don't think I'm gonna leave the customer, the client hanging or anything like that. So, but I just don't think it's gonna be tough for somebody to rehab it.
I don't know, I think you said you're under agreement. Do you have a drop dead date on that?
It keeps getting pushed, so it'd be the next one's gonna be either October 1st or November 1st. I forget which one.
I'm just saying that because if you, heard a minute ago, we scheduled our next meeting.
Yeah.
Even to open this for the 24th of October.
Yeah. So.
Do we have any, sorry, John, do we have anything on that agenda right now?
Just Stonegate.
Just what?
Just Stonegate.
Just Stonegate? So, I mean, we could definitely get you on that agenda,
Okay.
for sure.
I'll have to talk to the boss here, make sure we can get the thing surveyed and get you guys some real drawings. I just wanted to bring it before we spent all kinds of money on it, and see. if
Yeah,
there's
I mean,
something
like I said, we can't say, oh yeah, I'm sure it'll go through, but I mean, I hope this is more of a better answer as opposed to, yeah, right, not gonna happen, you know what I mean? But it's certainly not out of the realm of something that we've discussed before and have approved before.
This house is abandoned,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
you know how many years it's been abandoned?
Probably well over 5.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking,
Is
at
this
least.
zone residential or is this zone, commercial
Commercial.
commercial?
So I would say, just recapping a little bit, since you know when our next meeting is, whatever you decide, if you need to get notices out to abutters to potentially want to come before us, or any of that stuff, for timing of everything, for your due diligence, so that you can say what's gonna happen at the next meeting, but that way, if you have all your ducks in order, it just makes it flow a lot smoother.
Yeah, okay.
When's the cutoff for submittal?
It's 2 weeks before, Carrie, so what date was that? Is it 2 weeks before?
For what?
For the deadline for them to submit to be on time for agenda?
1 month before, because I gotta get the newspaper publishing in. The
So-
the publication has to be in 2 weeks. It has to be published in the paper 2 weeks before, and then 1 week before the public hearing. So I need the paperwork 1 month prior to.
So that was,
Okay.
So they can't be in October.
yeah, no.
Have to be November.
Because
So your earliest would be November.
No, it's not November 28th.
Today's the 26th,
we have 1, 2. Yeah, I would need it by the end of the week, Thursday.
To make it on the October.
Yeah, because I have to submit it to the time, because that,
It's not, yeah, so it's not so much our deadline, what we care
Yeah.
about, it's more the getting time in the paper.
Totally understand. I think, is the application have to be in, or do I have to submit a full-blown, drawing? Can
it
I,
has to be the full application.
Okay.
I need the full application.
yeah, so we'll probably,
But if he has the application but then provides more information after the fact, that's okay, right?
He can, yes, so, I mean, you can
So,
submit,
so if he has the application, pay for it, all that kind of stuff, and then he brings the drawings after, like, that's okay.
because I have a drawing, it's just not, it's not a surveyed drawing right now. Yeah, we need some time on that.
I mean, that's to me, isn't that okay? We've had people come in with a paper notebook with like their pen just drawn something out, and then they've come in and brought plans actually after the fact. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we've had people bring in updated plans before.
Oh, just put them on the screen or whatever when we come in.
right,
As long as like, we've posted for things and have people added information after it's already been posted. We've had updated meeting
I
packets.
mean, submitting updated information is different from actually submitting your application and having the full application on file.
So okay.
Because the issue is with the abutter notification, they wanna be able to come in and see your application.
Right. Okay.
And the proposed plans. So if you have something that isn't complete, like the plans,
Which we do, yeah.
we
Yeah.
wouldn't be able to properly show any abutter or anyone who's interested to come in and see it. It's different if you have a plan and then you have a public hearing and then you have to update the plan, so you're submitting that in. You know what I mean?
Totally, yeah.
So that's a
totally
little bit
understand.
different. But I think to submit an application,
Yeah, you're gonna need the civil.
that's not complete,
Right.
for lack of a better term, I wouldn't be able to accept it, because that has to be turned into the town clerk as well. And that town clerk has to say, yes, this is a complete application as well. And if it's
Okay.
not a complete application, then I can't accept it, and if I can't accept it,
I'll make sure that we have a complete application, whether
Thank
it's Thursday or Friday, or whether it's next month.
Thursday, I would say Thursday, we're closed on Fridays.
Okay.
Thursday, and then I would say about 1:30, just because that way I can go through the paperwork, make sure everything's complete, and then that gives me ample time to get in touch with the newspaper. That's the biggest issue, is
Yeah.
getting in touch with the newspaper and say,
Yeah.
okay, here's my publication. And then also, I get the butter notification ready too, so I make the envelopes and everything. And I need some time to be able to do that, so I can get that done in time and sent out as well.
Okay, perfect.
I mean, if they can get it in time for Thursday, then by all means, I mean, that's fine with us, it's just a matter of, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds like a plan. Does anybody else have any questions or anything?
No, I mean, I'm definitely curious to see it, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, just the only thing I would say, I'm always tend to be the cautious reminder sometimes is that if you have everything in order, that's great, but if either the plans or the abutters raise significant question, at least you filed it, but that I guess what I'm saying is don't be presumptuous to assume that automatically that day it's gonna be thumbs up or thumbs down, because it could be continued.
Of course, yeah.
Right.
Of course, yeah. We know it's not guaranteed.
And the only reason I'm saying that is especially if you're up against, you know, a deadline with property purchase,
Yeah,
that's all.
yeah. Like I said, I think we're in it either way.
Okay.
So, you know, we'll see how it goes, and I would just like to create, obviously, a good product like that, instead of putting it back on the market and seeing what happens. So,
Yeah,
we'll take it from there and see how it goes.
awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Have a good night. Just so it's
Still do not see Veronica, so, but I would go ahead and start moving forward.
That's okay, we will do that. Is Marguerite on for Stonegate?
Marguerite's on there.
Alright, so we'll just turn to her. Anything first, or? So yeah, we'll go down to the next item agenda to review, discuss, and act Stonegate Landing LLC, westerly side of Somerset Ave, status update, phase 1. Marguerite, is there anything specific you wanted to go into first with this, or?
No, I mean, I think we've just been getting updates from Mr. Fedorov every month.
Okay, so Richard, if you're all set, you may start.
Mr. Chairman, Board of Members, it's nice to see you here. It's a regular thing for me every month. In the packet, I had a meeting with Kevin Smith and Jonathan about the playground, and they provided me about the standards in Massachusetts in ADA. And so I researched it. I found a supplier up in Henniker, New Hampshire, who could supply. And one comment I made in my letter to Kevin and Jonathan was that they were going to allow me to do different depths in certain parts, but when I analyzed the construction process, if you're 4 inches here, 5 here, and 7 here, it's a mess. You know, it'd be better off just getting to one level, taking all the stone out, putting a new fabric, filter fabric in it, and then putting, I think, 7 inches across the whole playground, and then we would be able to do that. But also in my letter, I indicated both of them that inevitably, you know, at my last meeting here, I said the biggest problem with the HOA is lack of communication. And so I, with the help of Veronica Truill, set out to fix that. And over the last 4 weeks, I've done a lot of knocking on doors, okay? It's just, you know, I didn't have a phone number, I didn't have an email address, so I just had to go and I have to tell you, overall, it went very well, okay? And I think most of the people in Stonegate want to get this fixed. And all my conversation with them was that, as we all know, Stonegate's been a nightmare now for 15 years, okay? A lot of mistakes made along the way. A lot of those people aren't around anymore. So, you know, when talking to Veronica, it's important to fix it, you know, and get it right. And, you know, if everybody's wrong, nobody's right. And I know that I have to give consideration, and And I think we can get through this, because in my walk around, I was given the email addresses of 27 of the 31 current homeowners, okay? One family
Hold on,
is,
John, are you all right?
Okay, hold on. Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
I'm gonna interrupt because I have Veronica on the line.
Okay.
She's having trouble, she can't log in. Carrie, I'm gonna give you my phone
Okay.
so she can tell you what to do if it's possible, please. Veronica, I'm gonna pass the phone to Carrie, hold on a second.
So 27 of the 31 you've had comments with, and out of those 20, you talked to 27 out of the
not 20, I had some emails, okay? And I got some of my email addresses from people who have submitted questions, to the board. And then I had quite a conversation with Tracy.
In your text box on your cell phone?
And she was very gracious, and
Oh, sure.
and
So
the
we're
whole
just
thing
leaving
was,
it.
we gotta work it out,
Okay.
it's long
Happy to
overdue.
do that.
And
You're welcome.
in my walk around also is that the question of the playground, the improvements and what it would cost the HOA. And I got comments from, a couple of people asked, this thing's been in since 2015. It's always been a private playground, and are those regulations, if they don't want to do it, I just don't know.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I have a question, and Marguerite might be able to help me out with this thing. So when Mr. Fedorov took on this project 15 years ago, there was a comprehensive permit that was signed.
I'll hold it. You want to give it?
I'm really sorry. Jonathan, can you open up your phone so that I can get Veronica's,
On the HOA.
That's right, you can see it.
I can't see
When I
her
have
phone
voice
number.
do that.
Is she not able to log in on Zoom?
She wants it to her personal phone because she's not at her office to get the login information.
Okay.
You just need the number, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Six one seven.
Yeah.
447-3492. 92.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead. Go ahead.
All right, so
You asked me, Jonathan, I have that phone in my phone.
So my question was to Marguerite in regards to the comprehensive permit when it was written in the playground, it was grandfathered at the age of the permit. Does that supersede bringing it up to the standards of 2015?
Well, I think we're talking about a couple of different pieces here. I mean, the standards that I'm understanding that are being discussed appear to be ADA standards around playground, construction of a playground in a subdivision. So what
So
those
something that's not
requirements
about.
are, I don't know what those rules are. I don't know those
Yeah,
regulations.
I wasn't talking about the widths and stuff like that, but it was the gravel that he had down at the time, it was stone. Now they're saying
Right.
that's not sufficient, but when he had that design that came in and we submitted with the comprehensive permit, I know this has gone from hand to hand to hand. Does he have to change it now due to that if it's a private, not a public playground?
So again, I need to know what regulations he's being cited to be able to research that and find out what any changes to those regulations, what their grandfathering provisions were, and when those changes went into effect. So I'm just hearing sort of generalized statements about what's required. If somebody can provide me with some citations, something in writing that shows me the requirements that are, and what you're following, I can provide a better sense to the board. But I also think this is something Richard himself can research. Typically, we typically have, the developers come before us, telling us if they think that they have to comply with regulations or not.
Marguerite,
So, you know,
I think
go ahead.
the regulations for the compliance were established before 2015. I can forward them to you tomorrow if you want me to, specifically for playgrounds. There's the federal code and then the state code, which is adopted after federal code, 2010 and 2012, which is stronger. That did not at that time, because the playground had not been built yet, did not
So
allow.
are you saying, so Jonathan, is what I'm hearing that it wasn't constructed properly to begin with?
Correct. I think,
Okay,
and I
that's a
think,
different story than bringing it up to
right.
code at this stage.
And I think Richard indicated before that when he constructed the playground, and Mr. Fedorov, correct me if I'm wrong, he asked about it at one point to someone, and he was told, oh, this is what you need to do, or somebody told him something. That person was not familiar with ADA practices, I don't believe. If they were, they would have given him different information. But I can forward that to you tomorrow so that you have that for your records, if you'd like.
So my question though, Marguerite, was this. The comprehensive permit was, this thing's been going on, he's had it 15 years, it's been going on forever. I don't know when the comprehensive permit was signed. So whatever we adopted into that, not saying he has to not meet the ADA requirements, what I'm trying to say is whatever that was written, he had to bring a playground drawing to the board to show us what he was gonna build, like any 40B we've always done. And at that point, we approved it. Doesn't mean it has to meet the ADA, I'm not saying that. But I wanted to know when we adopted, when was the permit originally signed about, and Mr. Fedorov could probably find this out for us, but I wanna make sure I'm wording it correctly. So was it 2010?
You'll have to give me a moment to go grab that part of my file.
All right.
Mr. Logan, the Kevin Smith email to the board back on August 22nd details all the letter he sent to me.
That's the same.
I think that's a good starting point. He did that in conjunction with Jonathan.
So this is the playground commissioner.
No, he's the playground commissioner, I'm the ADA,
But
he
the
based
guy
on
that
ADA
gave
specs.
this, Kevin Smith, is the playground
Yes,
commissioner.
yeah, he said that.
He sent it to give me the direction to look for them type of material and the reasons for it. And he cites a lot of different regulations. So maybe that would be helpful for my read as well.
So they're saying wood chips is what you need for a base?
Yeah, it's a special kind of wood chip. It's called engineered wood chips. It isn't like wood chips
How
around
is
here.
that fire rated?
What's that?
How is it fire rated? How is it like a,
First it's
I actually saw.
it's a
some-
manufactured,
Yeah, I saw.
right?
some-
Right,
I
so-
don't know exactly, but it's safe, you know,
Okay,
and
I'm just thinking out
it
of the box.
cushions the
So
ground much better.
in 2012, I can, there was a modification to the comprehensive permit that was issued in 2012, January 18th, 2012. It is condition number 17, and it modified the 2009 modification of condition 4 to say that prior to the 20th occupancy permit, the applicant had to complete construction of the playground recreation area on a certain spot per a modified site plan, and then it said that the applicant will spend a minimum of $25,000, a minimum of $25,000 in purchasing playground equipment for the playground recreation area. Prior to purchasing any such playground equipment, the applicant shall meet with the playground commissioner for the town of Dayton to obtain approval for the purchase of the playground equipment. And then additionally, it says the applicant shall also obtain the prior approval of the playground commissioner for the landscape of the playground recreation area, including all required gravel or other surface for the playground area. So whatever the playground, basically that condition said that whatever the playground commissioner was going to require both for the surface area and the equipment is what the applicant had to comply with.
Yeah, that cleared it up for me, that's what I wanted, I just wanted to hear that wording, okay.
Okay, and then what I can say is that if there are some particular regulations that exist that Mr. Fedorov believes he doesn't need to comply with, then I would, rather than sending them to me, I would be sending them to Mr. Fedorov. He can certainly research that on his own.
Yeah, no, I think what I see in his packet, I believe he's researched what they asked for. I was just making sure there was, when the comprehensive permit, because when I applied for a permit and I build something, and if a law changes, I'm grandfathered by the time I sign that permit. And I wanted to make sure this particular case wasn't in this situation here, but obviously Mr. Fedorov's verbiage or wording and modification on condition number 4, it was all in there stating that. And that was done after the fact of when they adopted the ADA and all that, so now it all makes sense. That's what I was just trying to follow up with.
Sure.
Mr. Logan, I also want to know that when we did that playground, it was inspected by the head, whoever's heading Parks and Rec.
Yep.
And it was inspected by Jim Aguirre.
Yeah,
Never did anyone talk to me anything about accessibility back in that time.
sure. Well, that's why I'm bringing it up. It did, you know, when she read that in 2012, in January 18, 2012, they changed condition number 17, modified it and changed condition on there on number 4 to the applicant. Now you must meet. That was modified. That was what she just read on the condition. So that means now, I agree with what everything I'm seeing here, that this must come up to the standards of today. So that was just, it was something that's been on my mind for a little bit on this particular playground. I know the playground, was required. We asked, well, I didn't, the board at the time asked for it, was in there. And I believe it was to be a private playground, but to this day, I don't know how you do that. You know, you can't hang on this one because you don't live here. I mean, that don't work like that.
Yeah.
So, you know, but that's all I really wanted to know on that particular case. You answered it for me right there.
Is Veronica on?
Yeah, did you hear back from her, Jonathan?
She just confirmed,
She confirmed
it
that
sounds like she was still waiting. I can give her a 10-second call and sit back here if you want me to.
Yeah, it meets the fire rating right here, it says it right in there. Because when I heard wood chips, I was like, ooh, I don't know how somebody smoking a cigarette drops it, it goes up in flames. So,
I guess while John is calling, we have Tom K on the line. I don't know if I think he's probably the same Tom K who submitted the email that we have. If he wants to speak, he certainly can. If he's just here for point of information. If not, I'll read his email into the record if he doesn't want to speak. But if he's here and wants to speak, he certainly can.
so, the other things
No, I didn't need to speak. I'm all set.
Okay.
So, do you have anything else to report to us before we wait, while we're waiting on her?
Can I just clarify, excuse me for interrupting?
Sure.
I have to get closer.
You sent the number to 617-447-3492?
617-447-3392.
No, 34.
347.
617-447-3492.
Alright, I'll try again.
I'm good. I can't do anything else.
There is a duplex on Main Street.
Where?
Mrs. Mullins' house. Right in back of me,
On William Street?
on Main Street.
That's the example. I just gave the example saying Main
Pork-
Street. I
pork
guess there
chop.
is one.
Pork chop lot on the top of the hill.
Pork chop love, it's a single
Oh, you're
family.
right.
That's
you're
not
right.
That's not a duplex.
Yeah, it is.
It's a ranch with a farmer's porch.
It's a modular duplex.
Well, it didn't come in front of us as that.
It was a hardship.
Hardship was the frontage on that piece of property, because he had his,
Yeah,
he
it
had,
was way back. It
I
was
remember
a while
this.
ago.
There was a fire hydrant, and I was arguing how you're gonna keep your frontage and all that with a hydrant. I remember that particular case.
This was before me.
No, my dad was the abutter at
Yeah,
that time.
that's right,
Yeah.
yeah.
But when you said there's one duplex on Main Street.
I
I'm
know
like,
that.
I was just thinking of examples of like how this.
That particular house came in front of us as a single-family modular home, and then he had gotten sick.
Yep.
And I remember that particular piece of property. They built that so the son could live in the front, am I correct? Then the son, they kept that house with the farm, the big garage.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, they kept, yeah.
yeah.
Carrie, is she able to log in?
I haven't heard back.
I mean, I don't mind giving it a few minutes, but we can't. I mean,
You want Jonathan, you want, Mr. Federoff to continue with what else he's completed?
if he has more, sure.
So other than the playground that we were just discussing, you were talking about that you, met with, the 20.
Oh, there we go.
Never mind.
Good timing.
We'll look to that.
All right, Veronica, if you can hear us and you want to speak, you certainly can. Whenever you're ready.
Hi, I can hear you. Sorry I'm late.
It's fine.
Couldn't get on and I was still at work.
That's fine. Do you have any updates for us regarding your discussions with Fedorov and the homeowners?
Yeah, so there are a couple of things, and yeah, I kind of wish I was at my laptop, but I had a couple of good conversations with Richard, things looking forward, but I wanted to focus on more the HOA. I know that the playground looks like it is moving forward, and that's a good thing. I'm not an expert on playgrounds in any way, shape, or form, but based on what I read earlier on, it looked like everyone's working together, and that's good. And Richard is trying to address the concerns for the playground, so that's one. On the HOA front,
Yep.
so I did have quite a few conversations on what was happening, and so with the state, with DHCD, we're still a little tied because this is a gray area, but like we've really not seen HOAs in this state, so to speak, right, where people are not wanting to pay and their payments being made and things like that. And so naturally people are concerned, but the takeaway from my conversations is this: you can either get a property management team, and I've spoken to a few who are doing some projects in Dayton, which I think is great, and or if Richard, and he's had some successes in talking with people, if Richard can get everyone on a call with me and they literally say to me that they want to work on the HOA themselves, then I will work on it with them and with Richard. But I want people to know that when you bring on a property management company, there are going to be some other costs. So a lot of times people won't know that. And so the question will be, do you want to handle the HOA yourselves? It's easy, but you're going to have to really think about how much you actually also owe. What does that really look like? Or do we start from square one? I don't know what a property management team is going to say because I've talked to a couple of them, and some of them are concerned because they feel like they have to go a little further back to capture what's necessary. I will tell you this, my biggest concern is the next person who wants to buy or sell, or refinance is going to have a very tough time because the HOA is not fully functioning, right? I know it's written, I know it's recorded, I know that, Richards, we've talked about that, but a real viable HOA still has all its officers, right? President, secretary, treasurer, whatever it may be, financial secretary, whoever the officers are, it still has to have that. And the banks are really getting strict on whether or not they will lend if your HOAs are not functioning the way they think they're supposed to, and if there's some deficits, right? And so I really got lucky only because I know the guidelines. I understand how to underwrite. So I was able to help the last person, but I can't tell you that the next one will get a pass because the banks are really cracking down. So Richard, you and I really have to get people on board with either having a property management company, which takes us out of the loop in a way, have a property management team, or will they be willing to sit down and really go and do this properly? I don't know about that part because I haven't had that conversation.
Just out of curiosity, the property management team would be at the homeowner's expense?
It really would be, yes.
So what happens if, I'm just spitballing here, you have 20 members, 20 residents, 15 of them are like, yeah, sure, that's fine, we'll do this, and 5 of them say, no, I'm not paying for this. What happens there?
I've never seen that, so we'd have to have that conversation. Because if it's for the good of everybody, you could, I don't know how that would work. I don't think you could do that. I think everyone would have to find a way to agree or make some compromises in order to make sure that everyone feels heard and everyone feels comfortable. Like that mean, you know what I mean? Like you can't ignore the person that says no.
So it have to be everyone or no one.
Yeah, you'd have to, it's happy everyone or no one. And a property management company's not gonna want to come in and it's dysfunctional, they're not gonna allow for it, so.
My thought was like, if you have five residents that say, no, we can do it ourselves, guys, we don't need to pay for this. And the other one saying, no, we can't, we need to pay for this. I guess that was my wondering, where does it go from there?
So here's what if it were me and what I would see happening is if they felt like they could do it, then those 5 who really feel like it, and I would make sure they had some training. So there is training that they can get. So if people feel like they want to go that route and try it, then I would suggest first that they do some training. And again, some of that stuff can happen very fast if they really feel like because I'm sure they don't want to incur an extra cost. I do believe that. But yeah, there's a way to work with them, and if they think after they've done the training that it's still something they want to do, that's great. A lot of HOAs function on their own without property management, and other bigger ones, like Richard has 2 faces. The larger ones like to have property management because they don't want to ever have issues with deficits.
Yeah.
Which is where they are. I'm concerned that we can't do another type of loan, anything. If anybody had to sell quickly, they really can't. They'd have it'd be a lot of work.
Yeah.
On the seller's part.
Veronica, does the HO, if there's a management team put in place and the residents indicate that they want that, because Richard is the developer, does Richard also have to accept that? Or could he say no? That's my first question. And then my second question is, with regard to the overall project, if there's a management team in place, a third party now, in effect, how does that affect going forward with the continuing construction or any sale that Richard may have of other units or of phase 2? Because now there's a management team. Is he answerable to them, or does he still retain the control that he has?
Good question.
And so since he has, so the first question, the answer to the first part is, before I have the residents talk with the property management team, I would have Richard talk with them so he could hear what they're going to present. And because I won't know what they'll expect of him, that I can't tell you. I don't know that part because I've never seen this before. So I would say I'd really rather him have a conversation with them so that they can at least be on the same page, and then go from there. And if Richard, and I don't believe Richard wouldn't do it, Richard, based on what we said today. I don't think he's opposed to it. I think he wants to try the options to make sure that the residents are happy. And so if it means that, yeah, let's start with a conversation. I've already lined up one property management company, and I think Richard knows another one. I'd say let's start with that conversation, and then they can tell him what they expect from going forward. Because again, this is a newer space that usually the HOAs are moving right along.
And the second part?
But I do want to say one more thing. So sorry. when you have phases, you really, in order for Richard to kind of turn it over, you still have to finish phases as well. We have to have phases finished. And so I'm working with Richard on trying to, see how quickly he can get the other houses completed so that he can finish a phase, so that, he can then free and clearly turn everything over.
And I'm asking this because we have, the zoning board has our legal counsel on the call with us too, Marguerite. So the question is,
Hi, Marguerite.
the question then also, I guess I would ask too, is because there potentially would be a management company on board, I use that word potentially.
Yep.
And because that may change in one way or another, the face or the enforcement of the document that's already there, does that mean that Marguerite and the town would have to be involved in this process at all? And I'm thinking of that because of the financial responsibility to the town or to the zoning board for that.
So, I guess what you're asking is if you put the property management in place now, would Richard still have to answer to you, or would he answer to them? And I think he still would answer to the town. I think it's both and, because he'd have to talk to property management to let him know what he's doing, but he still is responsible to talk with you all. So you all are still in the lead. I don't, the property management, as far as I know, they don't take charge. But they manage. They just manage the day-to-day. They care about paying. Are they up to date on their condo fees? Are we over budget, under budget? What needs to be done? Like, they care about those things. They're not looking at developers. But again, I had to get to this, so I'm looking forward to having a conversation with Richard and the property management company. I was expecting a call from them today, so I could give you guys a little bit more, but they are concerned, just that, it's sort of sitting in limbo is what one of the ladies said. It's just sitting in limbo, so.
I know you have a meeting right now that was scheduled with the residents and Richard for this Thursday night, this Thursday evening. Do you still expect that to happen, or?
I still expect that to happen. I only had a couple of people respond, but I am gonna send out one more email, just reminding people that we still need to hear from them. And again, my whole thing is, we have to hear from you in order to even move forward. You can't, this inability to communicate or inability to want to communicate can't continue. My biggest thing is 40Bs, right? You guys know that. My whole thing is really to help the 40B families, but because the market rate families are there, I would not ignore that. I want to make sure that whoever is working on behalf of all of them. And if they decide that they don't want a property management team, but they want to do it themselves, then I would want them to have a committee made up of both market rate and 40B families, so that they move forward well, and that they're still working with the town. They're working and talking with Jonathan, and Jonathan and I are working together, and so I think that would be great. But I'm still planning on meeting on Thursday, so whoever shows up is probably who I'm talking to.
Yeah, and I'll just say too, on the communication aspect of it, as the chairman of the board and someone who's been listening to these conversations in the past and the abutters and everything, it is frustrating with not the lack of communication, but the lack of responses that you're getting, because when they come to our meetings and the emails that we get are very passionate and very about their HOA, and now here you're getting minimal response. At that point, I'm not saying this towards you, I don't want to hear it anymore. I just don't.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure. Yep.
So this is for Veronica. Veronica, you mentioned that there's a meeting scheduled for Thursday. I know you have my email address, and I have no knowledge of this meeting that's scheduled for Thursday.
I sent it out. And I don't know who you are. I mean, what's your name?
This is Thomas Kerensky. I had spoken with you on the phone.
Yeah, I did speak with you. Yep, I sent out an email, and I did get a couple of responses. I'll look again and see. But again, I'm mostly 40B, so you may not, because I was doing the 40B families first, I have to.
Okay, but that should really go out to all the residents, I would imagine,
No,
of Snowgate Lane.
no, if it's, you're right, so I'll look again, but I
Okay.
believe at the first meeting, I wanted to get the 40B families and find out what's going on with them. I believe that was what I did first, because my role is 40B.
No, I understand, but you guys are all talking about making decisions with the
Oh.
HOA, and the
Yeah.
fact that I haven't received any communication, it's just a little concern, just based on what I'm hearing, so, that's all, I just wanna clarify.
Yeah, I'll double check and make sure, but Thomas, when you spoke with me, you didn't identify that you were market rate at that point either. I did not know that, so I wouldn't have known that until I found out later, so you would have still gotten the email. So I'll double check and make sure that maybe I didn't misspell or miss you, for sure. I can clarify. That's not but when you're talking with us too, just you let us know that your market rate would have been, if I had known that, that would have been good to know up front when I was talking.
So Veronica,
I found out later, sorry.
Veronica,
I just wanna make sure.
Veronica, this is Jonathan. So my question then is, I'm gonna go back to a little bit just so that we get an absolute clarification specifically for zoning board purposes, which is, since technically your role represents the 40B residents, but the management team represents Richard potentially
Everybody.
and all of the residents.
Yep.
Does that mean that our council needs to also be in communication with the management team, or is that not necessary? Because that's the other part of this, which is beyond the 40B realm of it.
Right, so the property management will be solely for the residents, right? That would be that's who they go to, property management. It really doesn't have anything to do with any of the towns. So wherever they are, property management teams, they only report in, like if there's anomalies, things that are happening, they'll do reports, like I'll do a report and just say, hey, this is what's happening, you need to be aware of it. So that's your role. You won't have to do a whole lot with them, which is a good thing, because you guys have a lot that you gotta do. I don't think you want one more thing, but Jonathan, you being a part of this is really good too, because when you're sitting in the meetings with me, you can also share with everybody, here's what I heard. Here's what's happening, this makes sense, this doesn't. And in addition, Jonathan, when we're looking at emails, if you happen to notice that I might have missed somebody, at least you can say, hey, you missed this person, because I may not know that. Sorry, guys, for the noise.
That's fine. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about regarding the HOAs?
So I am gonna, hopefully tomorrow I will get a response. I'm actually gonna push for it, because I think this is critical. For everybody at Stonegate, for those who are just coming in and those who've been there. This is really critical, and so I'm hoping to have that. Once I get that, I'll just send a note to Jonathan, or Jonathan and Carrie, but I'll send it to Jonathan, let him know that I did have a chance to talk with this property management team, as well as Richard, and then maybe Jonathan, Richard, and I can have a discussion about it too. But I want to make sure that at least something happens. And Richard, keep doing what you're doing. Keep talking to everyone, because the responses you got, that was good, and I was glad to see that. But I think our communication can get better the more they're talking with you, and they should be talking with you. So, that's all I have. I just want us to get this taken care of, and I just want everyone to be happy and, and be able to move forward well.
Okay. Sounds good. Richard, do you have anything else?
I didn't hear most of it, okay, but I got the gist of it, and I just want the board to know that this has been pushed off for way, way too long, and I think if I could work with Veronica, and I've got at least 27 people, and I'm gonna knock on the last 4 doors, and just try to get everyone together. And the first thing I think would be good is to get 5 different homeowners, they have a small committee, we talk, okay, and then it's hard to talk to 31 people all at once, so So I'm just exploring every option.
Yeah. Well, Richard, you did say a couple people would not give you their email addresses, correct?
Was there a question?
I don't know. I don't know if that they wouldn't give it. I don't know if she's asking if you were able. Were there people who wouldn't give you the email addresses?
There was just so far one party, yes,
Who
just refused.
Okay.
She said that they belong to an association. They bought the house 4 years ago, and a lawyer from Bank of America told her, according to her, told me to go pound top. So that's a hard one.
Okay.
Okay.
So yes, to answer your question, Veronica, it sounds like yes, there was one person who refused to give the email.
Okay, okay. Well, you know what? Then everyone just moves on. I mean, if one, and you know what, eventually when that person sees things happening, Richard, they'll want to join in. That's just how it is.
Okay, I guess that's all we have for Stonegate Landing for tonight. All right, I think we addressed everything that we had before us.
Margaret might.
Oh,
I don't know if Marguerite has it.
I don't know. Margaret, you didn't have anything else, right?
I don't have anything on Stonegate Landings, and I don't believe there was anything else you needed me for on the agenda. I did send in a decision, I believe.
Yeah, it's all set.
On your agenda item, but I don't have anything to add for that.
Okay.
I just want to say, I want to be clear, it is important that the HOA gets taken care of for the reasons that Veronica stated, but the role of the zoning board in the HOA is very, very minimal. You've completed your work around the HOA because you require that there be an HOA, and the HOA has to be responsible for certain things. And you've reviewed the HOA agreement, but at this stage, the HOA's responsibility of operation is internal. And they need to operate internally without the zoning board's involvement. The only role you would have to play at this stage would be if there needed to be a modification to the HOA agreement in order to, for instance, have a property management company run the HOA. That required a modification of the original agreement documents, then that should come to the zoning board for its review and approval.
Right.
But the zoning board really should be stepping out of being involved in the operation of the HOA, other than to ask Mr. Federoff, because you're hearing complaints from landowners, if the HOA is operational. But if it's not, you need to tell him that it needs to be operational if he wants to have any further action taken by this board in terms of, approvals or modifications or anything like that.
So I guess with that being said, and especially now that we have Veronica, which I think was the missing piece to a lot of this, I don't think there's any more discussion needed regarding the HOA at the meetings.
Yep.
So if we get any correspondence to the office regarding the HOA, tell them that, as I was going to understand it. The HOA.
I would keep it on file because the next time Richard comes before you to request anything, or somebody else comes on behalf of this development to request something, that's something you're going to want to know has been resolved.
Okay.
Yeah.
But in terms of any action, you have no standing to take any action on behalf of anybody.
Okay.
You require this HOA to operate in a certain way.
Okay.
It is a requirement of the comprehensive permit that it exists. It needs to be operational. If it is not operational, it will not, the permit is not being complied with. And that means any future, relief that's being sought under this permit could be in jeopardy. So, I say this to Richard, you can say this to Richard, he needs to fix this, but it's really not something the zoning board has authority over in terms of the detailed, day-to-day, how is this going to be done piece. The most the zoning board can do is refuse to grant further approvals until it's resolved.
Okay.
That's really the only thing this board can do. And so, for the homeowners who are listening as well, if you believe this HOA is not operating properly or in accordance with the agreement, this is a private issue that you need to pursue on your own separately. The town cannot do this for you. And this is something that they need to do separately through another outside agency, through their own separate legal counsel, however they want to look at that. But as I'm listening to what Veronica is saying, it sounds like something needs to start happening soon because it looks like there's a lot of risk involved, with being able to, you know, buy, sell, refinance homes. And Richard, it's on you too. You may not be able to have somebody purchase a home, even if you've got it built, until this HOA situation is resolved. So I think there's a lot of reason for people to figure this out, but I do think that the zoning board has to recognize its role is extremely limited if involved at all.
I thought, yeah.
I was writing it down.
Okay, sounds good. All right.
Thank you. I have one,
Mr. Chairman, even though it's not your job, the minutes, I say, I still wouldn't mind coming every meeting.
well, we still have all, how we worked without the engineering, how'd that come out?
I haven't heard back from those guys up there.
Okay, have we heard back from the engineering?
Sitting.
So we did hear back from the engineering, and they were holding off on the scope of work and providing that because we've changed engineers.
That's why, okay. Okay, that's what I had.
Last meeting, I couldn't discuss that because it was, we had just talked about it, but at a meeting beforehand, I was like, I can't talk about this right now. Now we can.
Okay.
So yes, we do have a new engineer that we've gone with, so.
I'm sorry, I tried to keep it to 10 minutes, you wanted to get out of here. And
But yeah, so that's why we do now have a new engineering firm that we're using.
Okay, I was just making sure that it
Yeah,
wasn't something.
and I will just keep supplying you. If you want, I mean, some of it, as Marguerite said, really isn't your concern.
Well, we need the road work. I do wanna know
Yeah,
about the road.
that's a big thing. That's the one we should be focusing on.
Okay, sounds good. Thank
Good
you.
luck with your HOA.
So
I just want to say thank you to Marguerite. Thanks, Marguerite. Fun.
Veronica, good luck.
See you later.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
is there any other, well, we already did public input. Any additional correspondence, Carrie? I'm assuming no.
Nope.
Approval of the minutes. Carrie did not have time to finish them, so we're gonna have to table that to the.
That's okay. No, I'm sorry.
Just give us a call, we'll come sign it.
Okay.
So, we make the motion that we table the approval of the meeting minutes to our next meeting.
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do we
Board,
have a second on that? I didn't hear.
John seconded.
John
No,
second?
no, yeah,
You first. You
I first.
Yeah, he made it, motioned it, and seconded it.
I first, I mean me first.
Sorry, go ahead.
Any board members have anything before we adjourn? Any? No, nothing?
So just under general discussion.
Sure.
Just for fodder for the future, so that, and I want to be clear that this parameter would be very, very, very limited and needs to still be worked out, but you heard Veronica mention that she and I have gone back and forth at times
Yeah.
over this matter and, you know, other 40B matters in town as well.
Mm-hmm.
And the question has come up in the past as to whether or not the town should have a quote liaison for 40B, and that doesn't mean to get in the weeds with developers or anything out of the realm of simply being a source for if somebody has a question, okay, you go to this department, you go to that department, that kind of thing. Because right now, when these folks have questions, they often just don't know where to go, period. So it's really a conduit of information services and nothing else. This has to be discussed more. Veronica has asked me if I would be interested in doing that because of what I've done in the past and the work that I do with it. I said, yeah. I discussed it with Mike briefly to get his input as well, our town administrator, and our town administrator has said that he is not opposed as long as the zoning board approves it. But before I would ever ask the zoning board to consider approving it, I'd like to be able to have more discussion about it and potentially put something in writing that's very, very, very limited. So that if there's gonna be a motion to vote on anything that allows that doesn't interfere with anything else we would be doing with 40Bs, because that's the whole purpose. We can do that. And again, the purpose is because a lot of what we do with these 40Bs, and this is a simple example, is we're spinning our wheels trying to figure out who to go to, where to go to, and how to get information, and get people before us. So that would be the only purpose of doing something like this. So when Veronica talked about, for example, having me work with the residents there, no, I can't do that. That's crossing the line. And that's out of the question for me to be able to do something like that. So I'm just throwing it out there so that we can think about it, discuss it, perhaps put some words together that will make sense if there's gonna be a motion in the future. It doesn't have to be a motion. If it's not gonna happen, it can just stay out dormant, but I'm bringing this up in effect under new business, at least so it's just out there for the conversation.
I guess it's something that I personally want to talk to Mike about.
Yep, and I agree.
Just, especially where I don't want to run into any any situations where if you're a voting member on something, but you're a 40B owner and you're the liaison, to me, sounds like there's a potential for a mess of, like, if we have a 40B coming for us,
Yep.
if he's being a 40B owner, it's like, okay, well, I'm not a voting member on it, but I am the liaison, so I'm still gonna be able to talk about it. I don't wanna get into any kind of risk of any kind of conflict of interest, that's all.
And I absolutely agree with you, and that's why I think if I were ever to even do it, it needs to be very, 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 3 times there.
And with,
Limited, if at all.
with all due respect, if it's very, 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 very minimal, why do we have it?
I think the only reason is because what we find sometimes is that with, whether it's somebody like Veronica or residents from who are 40B, or even a developer who just has a question, who do I go to when? They're not sure who to go to.
Has it been that much of an issue before?
I'm sorry?
Has this caused any serious issues before?
I think it's caused issues where it just slows processes up. It's not a question of me looking at documents, reviewing documents, for anybody, I don't think. Unless they're specifically in the weeds on something. It's just helping, information and referral. That's pretty much all it is. So that at least there's one person in town, if somebody wants to know, well, what do I go to when I have an issue? And I can say, okay, well, you go to your lottery agent, or you go to your monitor. That has nothing to do with the town.
So is this a position that currently does not exist?
It does not, and this is not a position, this would be strictly a voluntary, after the other work that I do with 40B types of things. But again, I'm open to not doing it too. I'm just saying, if I did it, I think it needs to be limited, because I don't want to be held liable. I don't want the town or this committee to ever be liable for anything.
I mean, it's certainly something that we can discuss, I guess, but I definitely would want to talk to, I personally would want to talk to Mike about it,
Absolutely.
just to,
No, and I would recommend that.
Okay.
That's why I'm just throwing it out there. But I think it's worth the conversation, and if it goes nowhere, it goes nowhere.
okay.
That's okay with me.
Anybody else have any comments on that?
No. I think that, between, our office personnel and, our legal counsel, those are pretty much what we've been laying on the 40Bs at this moment in time. And, I'm glad that Marguerite spoke up, because I had written that down about that we don't have anything to do with HOA. And I was listening to these going back and forth, and it was a waste of our time.
Yeah, I think like it started off with we're talking about things that the zoning board did need to know about, such as the road work and stuff like that.
That's what I
And
wanted.
then it entered into what about the HOA, and it's like, I don't know, what about the HOA?
That being said, that's the kind of stuff we don't need interrupting our meetings.
And like I said, now we have Veronica. I think that's
I
the
love that.
that's the piece that we were serving as that we shouldn't have been serving as.
Right.
So
But I mean, it's something serious.
I'm not saying yes. I'm not.
There is people in the town that are, in jeopardy of
I
all
am-
this, and I feel if we could hear it tonight, but, I mean, as Mr. Federoff had said, he is getting problems meeting up with the HOA. Again, it's not our concern, but it bothers me that it's come to this.
And what I've had to say at other meetings regarding stuff like this is that me saying it's not our problem, I'm not saying it's not a problem. I'm saying it's not our problem. I don't want the residents to think, are you dismissing and not saying what we're saying is
And he
important?
said
It certainly is,
out
it's
of
just not with
31
us.
people, he was able to talk to 27.
Yeah, and I think
You
it's
know,
clear
so
that those
that was a huge step,
It was, so,
and I believe she had a lot to do with
residents
it.
are not things we can ever get into.
Right.
It's not our purview at all.
right.
So I agree, I'm glad that Marguerite clarified that very clearly, because it actually takes a lot of the other things that come before us to get them off our plate.
Yes, absolutely. Anything else? All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
I got that one under control.
We're all set, thank you.